Hi, dear friends, cultural creatives, and seekers everywhere. I'm Bruce Lipton, and I'm here to offer a very special presentation of a series on vestigial organs. Vestigial? What's that word? It means organs that we deem no longer useful in the human body. And for that, today's special is about the appendix. The appendix, yes, I've heard about it, yeah, but let me tell you what it is. Originally, in herbivores, animals that eat plants, the appendix is quite large. It's a little tube sticking off of the large intestine, right where the small intestine joins that large intestine. Well, in herbivores, the design is apparently for digesting bark and cellulose items, and that, of course, is in the herbivore diet. But in carnivores, the appendix takes a dramatic shrinking, and it gets smaller and smaller. Now it's a finger-like organism in a human. And the relevance is that, well, since we're not herbivores, then the appendix is probably not very useful. In fact, it's deemed not so useful that when surgeons are opening up the body, they offer, we could take your appendix out now, save you any problem later from appendicitis. Oh, we don't need the appendix. Oh, well, how smart is that? Well, what's really interesting is this. We think we're so smart, and that anything less than human is not as smart as we are. Well, guess what? Who created us? The cells created us. The cells created a community called the human body with all of its functions and all of its abilities. So if we want to give credit to where this body came from, we're going to go back to the single cell, because cells are very intelligent. Well, if they're that intelligent, then why do we still have an appendix when we're apparently not herbivores? Well, guess what? Science in more recent times has recognized there's something quite different about that appendix. Well, it turns out that it's a tonsil. A tonsil, yeah. Tonsils are organs that provide for immune regulation. It's part of our immune system. When we digest food, we first bring it into our mouth, and what are called the oral tonsils, the ones in your throat, examine what you've just ingested to see what's in it and then make an immunological memory of it. A second set of tonsils is when you go from the stomach to the small intestine. There's an old story of something called the wolf in sheep's clothing. If a wolf wears a sheepskin and then sneaks among all the other sheep, then it has a great opportunity to get dinner for what it wants. It sneaks in. Well, guess what? There are viruses that come into our body that are coated with the same surface proteins that we find on our human cells. So when it's ingested, the immune system says, oh, that's just us, no problem. But when it goes into the stomach, the acid breaks it up. Now understand, acid is not the digestion process. Acid takes large pieces and breaks them into smaller pieces. Well, through this process, any virus that sneaks in with a human cell coating on it will be caught, because as the food leaves the stomach, it passes by another set of tonsils called Peyer's patches. They re-examine what was ingested and taken in with our food. So there's a second level of observation. Now the food goes through the small intestine and digestion occurs with the help of our gut bacteria, which we'll get back to. By the time it gets through the small intestines, all of the useful materials should have been removed from that digestion process. Well, guess what? There are leftovers. And what are those leftovers? Aha! That's why a third set of tonsils called the appendix is there, because it samples what's left over after the digestion process. So we see what's coming in, input, oral tonsils. We see what happens when we break the pieces up. That's the opening up the stuff. That's the Peyer's patches. And then we see what's left over, and that's the appendix. The appendix is part of the immune system. It's a learning system, and it is vital to really understand how to fully affect the development of our immune system. So it's not a vestigial piece at all. So, big mistake. Appendix, quite useful for our health and our benefits regarding what comes into our biological system. Well, that's not the only thing it does. There's something else. I mentioned gut bacteria. Well, this is part of what we call the microbiome. The fact is, our entire body surface is covered with bacteria. And not only the surface, but any inlets to the body get covered with bacteria. So that means your mouth has bacteria in it, your ears have bacteria in it, your rectum has bacteria in it, your nose has bacteria, but your digestive tract is completely open to the outside. No, the digestive tract is a pipe. And if you could see it from the mouth and dissect it out of the human body, the whole thing, stomach, intestines, pull it right through to the rectum, it's one closed pipe. The mouth is where stuff goes in, the food goes down the pipe and gets processed all the way down the pipe until it is eliminated. The point is this, the food is not in your body until when? Until it is transported out of the pipe. Well, that's what happens especially in the small intestine, where the food is taken out of the lumen, the inside of the digestive tract, and then bacteria break it down to the final pieces, the smallest pieces of chemistry, the building blocks of life, and then the digestive system will absorb those chemicals and take it in. The point is very clear. Our digestive system is dependent upon the microbiome. And this is why when people have diarrhea, it has a profound consequence, because then you lose the gut bacteria, which are involved with the actual digestion process. So what happens when you have diarrhea? Well, the answer, you wipe out the lining of all the microbiome. Well, now you're in deep trouble. And this is why after a diarrhea event, we take in a lot of salt, water, bring in things to reestablish the gut. But we need to reestablish the gut bacteria. Well, it turns out that little appendix that we thought was doing nothing is the equivalent of a safety deposit box, because in there are samples of all the microbiome bacteria needed in our gut. So after a splurge of diarrhea, guess what? The bacteria can come back out of the appendix and then repopulate the gut so we can get back to normal health again. So the idea of removing the appendix and saying it has no use is a human idea. Are humans intelligent? A little less than they think they are, because medicine has made mistakes in the past and had to compensate for them all the time. For example, recently we were told how eating cholesterol-containing foods was really bad for our internal cholesterol level. There were periods where people don't eat eggs, don't eat butter, don't eat things with cholesterol, and we were thinking we're doing a great health thing. Well, of course, that opinion has changed. Why? Because now we know dietary cholesterol is not taken in to the gut. So you could eat all the cholesterol you want. It's not going to change the internal cholesterol balance. So that whole idea was a little wrong, as many other ideas were. I love one favorite one while I'm talking about it. I was looking back in the history of the Lancet, a medical journal from the 1800s. Guess what they used to do when you had a wound? They would put arsenic on it to kill the bacteria. Of course, nobody really followed the fact that the arsenic then went into the system and killed the patient as well, but we learned those things after we made the rules. So now, the rule, the appendix is vestigial? Nope, not correct at all. It is a functional, elemental part of our body. That indeed it does get infected in some people, and appendicitis the result, as a consequence of maybe too much antigenic material taken into the system, or something that will override the gut bacteria in the first place. Should we blame the appendix for the problem? No. The appendix is still a very functional element in our body. So let's have a wake-up call. The wake-up call is this. You may have heard that the appendix is a useless structure in the human body, technically referred to as a vestigial structure. Well, guess what, my friends? That was totally wrong, because now we know the appendix is a very important part of our system, both for the immune system, for maintenance of the microbiome in our body. So it's time for, again, medicine to recognize we were on the wrong path, to help people keep that appendix as a very relevant and important part of their biological system.